Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Jason. So, Jason, welcome.
Hi, Kendrick. Good to meet you.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So, can you tell us your full type, please?
Okay, so I'm an ESTJ, and in the OP system, I'm typed as MF, so audio, TESI, blast, play, sleep, consume.
All right. And what did you think and how did you feel when you got your typing results back?
I mean, when I first looked at it, I was a bit shocked because we had been trying to get me typed on the Discord quite a bit earlier, and we were most people were convinced I was beta quad, and I was very convinced I was in the beta quad. So I thought I was going to be on the axis of like TR TRSE, something like it, like an ISTP or something else. But I was like, I'm too DE to be DI, and it was just a lot. So it was hard to say. Um, yeah, so I was a bit shocked, but it made sense very shortly afterwards. And then as I thought, there was like, okay, that explains a lot of things in life, a lot of things.
So, Jason, how did you get into um, personality types in OPS? Because like we don't have many, EJs is not as common as like the IP types that come in to get type and stuff. So, where's your fascination with learning more about your identity? Like, where did it come from, and how did you get into this?
I mean, I got into the personality theory. I was dating someone last year, and she was like, "Oh, let me see what type you are." So we did the 16 personalities test, and I got something like ENFP. I think I got ENFP. And I dug around and dug around, and I was like, that doesn't make sense for me. And then I got really honed in on INFJ, and I thought that was me. And I was like, but I don't want to be a stereotype. Like everyone thinks of the INFJ. I don't want to be that. But I was like, but nothing else makes sense. I listened to a lot of content on that. I did a ridiculous amount of research, but I wasted a lot of time because most of the stuff on YouTube is garbage. Um, but yeah, eventually then I found Dave and Shannon's channel, and I got into their stuff, and then I was like, oh, this is so cool because now I can see the patterns that I've seen in other people, and these guys have done the work, so I can take that and I get a better definition of what I'm actually seeing. So in large part, it was like, oh, I can figure out stuff for other people, and I've seen a few other interviews with some other EJs, and they were like, yeah, I could find out about other people, and that was the main interest. And then I'm like, oh, what's this now? It's like it's coming from me, like as you get your type back, you start to be like, like me, like this is my imbalance, really, and you're like, oh my god, that's my imbalance. So yeah, you start to really realize it. So I mostly got in for other people, and then I eventually found, okay, this is actually also really good for me. And I've been on a self growth journey for many, many years. So this is just another piece of that puzzle, but that stuff needs to end at some point, you know?
Right.
Just why is there so much new information?
Well, ESTJs and ENFPs are in the same quadra. So when you type yourself as ENFP, your consume is an ENFP's consume. So it's not like it's wrong, it's part of you. Because your consume is
Yeah.
ENFP, your sleep is INFP, and then your blast is ISTJ, right? So like all those are like
Yes.
those parts are all part of you. And it's kind of like maybe you saw your like fourth demon because you consume last, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I think everyone has a fascination with their fourth animal. So maybe that I find that interesting that like that's kind of like what you got us when you first got typed, like when you type yourself. Um, let's go over your parts. Let's start with the first one. Blast. Your blast is ST blast. Um, how do you personally experience your ST blast? SIT.
When I hear someone explain something, I feel this urge to jump in and re-explain it because
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, but they're not making it as clear, and they're gonna miss this. And what if the other person doesn't understand that? Or
right.
do you know where the other person's coming from? Because maybe you're starting at section C, but they haven't filled in blocks A and B yet, so they won't be able to understand that. And so I always feel like I need to go back to first principles and explain it from that point. But people get tired of it because it's too verbose. Blast is supposed to narrow down,
Right.
but I think ST Blast is a bit verbose at times.
Is it because you have it double activated also? So it's like even more drawn out than it should be, you know?
Yeah, I think so. Also, I mean, I'm not just so you can blast in different ways. So, for example, I'll be blasting by working, and I do a lot of learning and reading as well. So that might also just be blast because I'm learning and reading for the purpose of doing stuff. And when I'm in a social setting, my blast, the idea is, how can I get everyone involved? How can I include you and include you and include you and get everyone part of this conversation? And I will usually be the one sitting aside and just like, I'll ask someone a question or I'll bring someone in. And I'm not really blasting in the sense of talking, but I'm blasting in the sense of like, I'm still controlling the tribe and directing them and getting all the people to do different things.
It sounds like
But I don't have to talk.
what you described sounds like a hybrid of blast and play. It didn't sound like pure blast, because play is like pinging the tribe, right? So it sounds,
Yes.
yeah. It sounded like you were doing them both at the same time from your description. Like they're kind of like
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because you said
Yeah.
you're trying to bring everyone together to have the conversation. That's play. That's not. But then when you're directing the direction, that's blast. So you know,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about your play next. Your play is NT. So it's like problem solving or coming up with solutions. And because it's play, it's like doing it with people, with other people. So can you talk about like
Yeah.
collaborative problem solving, and how much you do that?
So that's it's a bit. So I've thought a lot about the way that this factors in, and because I have double feminine play, I've got double masculine sleep, and I've been really trying to figure this out because it's meant a couple different things. So for example, my self perception is, oh, I'm really open. I'll listen to all your opinions. I'll listen to this. I'll listen to that. I'm not really going to fight you on the information you're giving me. I'll just listen to it, and then I'll be like, okay, I don't agree with that. But if you want to like dig into it, I'm not really like so aggressive in that sense. But it's more like the way it contrasts with my double masculine sleep is like, if it's information for me and telling me I must change something, it's like I will hear it, but then you can't expect me to make a change immediately because it's hard. Like it's pretty hard. I have to really think about it if I'm going to do something different. But yeah, I just, that's one of the things I found so funny about being a thinker at first, is I've seen so many other people have big arguments with each other, and they get all these arguments, skills and stuff like, oh no, this person's moving the goalposts, or don't let them do this so much because then they're cheating in the argument and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't really like pay attention to a lot of this stuff. I'm mostly interested in getting stuff done. So my play will be like, so what do you think? And what do you think? And what do you think? And what possibilities could happen? And what do you think could happen if this occurred or this occurred? So it's more just tracking all the different ways other people think, so I can figure out what fits with everybody. And I'm not really so interested in like, I mean, sometimes I am like, yeah, okay, you're wrong, but I'm not really in general that aggressive. I'm more like, okay, well, let me gather all the data and then I can figure out what to do with it. And you don't necessarily have to agree with it because you don't understand the whole picture. I'm grabbing little snippets from each person and I'm going to piece it together myself. And so other people can't see the whole picture. So I don't take their opinions so seriously.
And because you have TE, it's feminine. Do you find that your work is not personal? It's like, whatever. It's like it's not as personal as like the stuff that you do for in your personal life. Or do you take it
I've got
personally?
I've got high standards, right, for the way I do stuff. And so sometimes, your work is interconnected with other people. And I think one of the things about being an EJ is you often run to blame. And I'm not always so terrible in doing that, but it does happen. But it's like if someone criticizes the work I do, I'm like, I did a really good job there. And they're trying to say that this wasn't done. And it's like, I know that wasn't done because of the other person. And I'm like, no, I must come in and explain everything to everybody. And honestly, no one cares. Like, no one's really paying attention. Most people have the bandwidth is not that high. So I do take a bit of that stuff, but it's more from the perspective of, yeah, it is personal in the sense of like, they're telling me that I did a bad job when I know I did a good job. And maybe there was a miscommunication somewhere, but I try to make things as clear as possible, and then other people don't. They don't, you know. And then when there's a misunderstanding, I'm like, well, we tried to get to the bottom of this, and they were like, oh, but just figure it out. So it's like, okay, well, I try to figure it out. I got some stuff done. But it happens, yeah.
So with that being said, you are energy dominant though. So like you're not info dominant. Do you think that you're leaving some gaps by not being info dominant?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, if there's someone who doesn't know what's going on, it's this guy. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm like, oh well, if you said this in a meeting, I didn't hear it. You know, you must put it in an email. It's like, oh fuck. Then they sent me an email. I didn't read the email.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I do that. I do that kind of stuff. For me, consume is a very conscious thing, and it's more like the personal stuff you enjoy. And honestly, I don't do as much of that as I should do. So yeah, I don't think that it's just reading, but in general, like if it's not pertinent to the thing I'm working on right now, I don't see it, and that's probably just OI or something.
We'll deep dive into consume later. Let's deep into consume because I think those are like the big ones, especially for you because they're your demons. So I just want to touch on the saviors before we jump into like the deeper stuff. Um,
Okay.
you're energy dom, so you're supposed to be very goofy. Can you talk about like the goofiness with like that energy dom and just wanted to like exchange energy with people and just like have fun and whatnot?
Um, it happens. It happens. I perceive myself as a very boring person. I try to be as boring as possible, but it doesn't always succeed. Um, yeah, I can do the goofy thing as well, but I don't know, like it's sort of my style of doing it. It's not really, yeah, it's good. Like, but in general, like I'm quite serious because I'm trying to get stuff done, and you know,
Right.
I got big ideas and things I want to build and things I want to do, and so if something's not serving that purpose, it's like, well, it's kind of going to take a backseat.
I guess that's the ST, the boring ST report. Like that
Yeah,
stereotype is not it's not false. Um
yeah, it's not false. It's not false. Yeah, 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 yeah.
um
I mean, I can be fun and funny, but in general, I prefer to be like, okay, well, I want to work, kind of thing.
right. Yeah, it makes sense. Play blast play together, you want to be like this ultimate producer, crackhead producer. So
100%,
yeah.
100%.
Let's talk about your sleep. So this is the big one because this is your identity essentially. At least what you feel inside. It's SIFI. We're gonna go over the different dimensions of sleep. Um, so the first one is the obvious definition of it, which is preserving your energy for self. Can you talk about like when it's time for you to take a break? There's your consume last drink water. Um, anyways, sleep. You have sleep and play balance. Can you talk about like when you know it's time to take a break for yourself, like you know, away from the tribe and just get some rest?
Oh, I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, it depends, right? So the problem is the saviors are so oppressive, is that the feminine TE gets in the way. It gets in the way because if people are saying, hey, let's go do this, hey, let's go do this, I'm like, okay, yes, let's go do it. Okay, let's go do it. Okay, let's go do it. And then you're like, oh man, like I really am tired here, but I think I can squeeze it out. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. And so you push yourself and you push yourself. And then you'll have like a week where you just be like, okay, I'm not seeing anybody now. Sorry. And you just start saying no to everything. So you just get better at managing that. So you just realize, okay, well, I need to take time out for this. Like, for example, this interview here, like, I'm like, okay, how am I going to rev myself up before I get into the interview? Because at the moment, I'm just busy reading and doing some stuff. So I need to get out of that mode and into the play mode. So I've got to jump out of that. So I went on the Discord and just spoke to some people, then revved myself up, and I'm like, okay, here I am now. Now I took a short break before this, like a 5 minute break. And yeah, sometimes just switching off all the lights, getting in the dark room and head over pillow kind of thing, just shut everything out because you're so attentive to all the sounds and noises. Um, it gets quite bad. So to get away from the tribe, it's hard, man. It's hard. That kind of thing it's really been hard my whole life. And I often feel like I can't think for myself if I'm around a bunch of other people. So
Yeah,
if I have to problem solve with other people, it's really difficult. It's actually really difficult. I need to shuttle the other people out of my head first, and then I can do it. So I can do that. You know, you just get into the zone and you block everything out. But then I'm not hearing anything. You could be shouting next to me and I won't hear you because I'm just honed in.
gotcha. Next part of your sleep is setting boundaries from the tribe. Can you talk about like how you set boundaries with other people? Like Or is that something super? I mean, you're an EJ, I understand. It's super difficult. I'm an EP EJ also, so I kind of get it. But like yours gonna be worse than mine because I'm still double decided.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, what are boundaries?
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I'm too old to not have figured out boundaries properly yet. But I've been too busy on other stuff that I haven't got to this. It's on my to-do list to establish what my proper boundaries are and this and that. I'm just sort of flying on some kind of autopilot at the moment, and I've been doing that for like the last 10 years.
You're
And
procrastinating.
I just expect that if I overstep the line, I'll get a rap on the knuckles, and if they overstep the line, I give them a rap on the knuckles, and everything's hunky dory and okay. It's just like, well, hold on there, like we went a bit too far. And so where the line exactly is not clear for me, and that's not a good thing. It's caused me to make a lot of mistakes, but I'm just too busy to get to it. Like maybe that's just like demon inner world. Like I just haven't worked this shit out for myself.
Right.
But obviously I'm not ridiculous. Like there's obvious boundaries as well. I just find that sometimes I do cross them in terms of like, well, that's not your problem to solve, Jason. This is their problem. Leave them alone. And it's like, but I know the answer. I've studied it. I figured it out. Let me just tell them the information, and then they could figure it out. It's like, no, that's not yours to deal with. That's their shit.
Right.
And so that's a bit hard. It's very hard for me because I feel that if I do not volunteer that information, I don't care. And so love and hate are the two sides of the same coin. And to show you really don't like someone is indifference. And to me, not giving them the information feels like indifference. But the other thing is also you can't stop people from walking into a pit. And so if you actually care about someone, like Jordan Peterson says, you won't mother them to death to the point where like they will still make their mistakes and they will learn from them. Whereas if you continuously saving the person from all their problems, they're never going to grow. And so you keep them as a infants their whole life. So I have to actually just let go and let people just walk into pits and make their own mistakes. Because to
Yeah.
be honest, I'm making my own mistakes and no one's doing the shit for me. So I can then go into EJ land and say, no one cares about me. Oh man, that's so sad. Like, because my standard is if I care about someone, I will try help them. And then if someone doesn't try help me, it's like, okay, well then they obviously don't care. And that's not true. That story is not true.
Maybe like different love language, because like maybe yours is like acts of service, but then no one's reciprocating, because their love language
Yes,
is different.
yeah. Acts of service is my love language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, at least that it's good that you are aware you're aware of that. Like you know what it is. So I think that's like a good step.
Yeah.
I think the next step then is like to communicate it. So like, are you like dating anyone right now or
Not yet, but hopefully very soon.
okay. Yeah, so I think it's like super important to like communicate those like ASAP, right? So there's no surprises when your needs are not being met, right? So um
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a negotiation, and there's many other negotiations in a relationship.
yeah.
It's hard to master. It's a very difficult skill to master. So I hope that I will have that down pat and sort it out. But it's important to negotiate in many arenas.
Let's go over the next part of SF sleep. This is routine for health. I know there's a lot of ESTJs are pretty good at this, but I don't know where you are in this spectrum. So SI is routine, right? But it's like for FI, for your to feel good, to be healthy, right? So can you talk about like do you have any routines for like exercise, eating healthy, sleeping, mental de-stressing? Do you have any routines for all those stuff?
So yeah, I'm gonna do the OR thing. So basically, the problem for me that I find is often I don't channel change. So if I get stuck on one thing, I'm stuck on that all day long. And so everything else is not as important as this one thing that I'm working on. And because I'm not channel changing, I'll be like, okay, I'm still working on this, I'm still working on this. Oh my God, it's 2 a.m. Oh, I forgot to okay, I will still remember to eat because I get hungry and eating's addictive. And yeah, you also if I'm really stuck in something, everything else falls apart. And I'm getting better at managing that. But when I don't have that problem, then yeah, all the other stuff, I don't really think about it. It's automatic. So, I'll be like, okay, I'm tired now. Get some sleep. Or okay, I need to go do the dishes quickly. Let's go do the dishes. And so I don't like having regimented routines. I like being flexible. It's very important to me to be flexible in everything. So I know how to do all the stuff. I've studied all the routines. I have all the data. I've read a lot of books. Can't say I read all the books. I've read a lot of books, and I have I have a pile of knowledge on what to do. But I mean, I get stuck in one thing and then I don't channel change, and that kind of like eradicates all that. So what's the point of having the knowledge if you don't use it? So
Right.
at the moment, my routines are horrendous, horrendous. But as soon as I finish the thing I'm working on, everything just snap back into place. Like there's no problem.
I guess this is your double observing. Like you're aware of like what's going on from like the gathering and organizing standpoint, So
Yeah,
um
yeah,
okay, well that makes sense. I guess that's a blast play crackhead, like we're both I'm play blast, you're blast play, so I can understand.
yeah,
But yeah, I get it. Like sometimes there's stuff that needs to be finished and you have to make sacrifices, and unfortunately that's gonna be your health. So like I get it. All right. So
yeah.
the last,
Although
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
learning. Sorry. So what I'm learning as I'm processing my type is I'm realizing that I really am putting myself last, and this is not good because I know that like when I get enough sleep and I drink a lot of water, I feel so much smarter. Like I can get so much more done. And so if I prioritize myself first, and I don't, then I will actually accomplish the task that I want to do in a smaller amount of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I swap it around a bit, it actually works better. But somehow that hasn't integrated emotionally into me. I still keep making the same mistakes. And I know tonight I'm going to do the same thing when I go to bed too late.
It's crazy because your sleep is double masculine, so you're aware of what's going on.
Yeah, just the ranking of different things. So some things are ranked really highly, and it's like, well, this is more important than life. And then this is more important than this, and this is more important than this. It's like
Right.
maybe certain things should not be more important than life.
Yeah.
Swap them around.
Right. Exactly. All right, let's go to the hardest part of SF sleep for ESTJ specifically. Not for the other types, not for your fellow quadra, just for you guys specifically. That's emotional processing. Can you talk about your experience with processing your feelings, like taking a stop and be like, okay, you know what? I'm struggling with these emotions. And then like kind of just
Yeah.
going through the motion of like coming up with a conclusion of what's causing you to feel like this, and taking responsibility for your emotions essentially, like especially the negative ones. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think emotions are a tremendous problem. Maybe I'm unconscious, but anyway. So the whole point is, I will be in a certain situation where I negotiate with someone, we agree on something, and then they do something, they then negate that thing we agreed on, and then I get like really furious. I'm like, okay, I'm really angry right now. I need to calm down, but I can't. So I'm like, okay, let me exit the area and go walk around somewhere else, and then do it because I don't believe it's correct to explode at people. When I was a youngster, I would just explode. I'd be like, you're wrong, da 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 da, and then just go like full maniac. But that's not appropriate. It doesn't work. And it's also not fair to the other person because if you've been stacking stuff over time, then it all comes out at once, and that's no good. So what I prefer to do is as soon as something like is annoying or annoying and annoying, and it's like it's a problem, I'll then speak to the person, and I make it a rule that I do it as gently and as calmly as possible because it's not fair to unload my emotions on the other person. I can process my emotions myself. I can journal, I can meditate, I can sleep on it, I can go for long walks, and I can wait for myself to calm down. And usually I find when I have an emotion, there's a reason why that's happening. So your emotions are a litmus test telling you that you're being mistreated, something's not right. Like, for example, Jordan Peterson says when you're resentful, maybe that means you are being mistreated or you actually need to leave your job and go do something else. So you need to understand why you feel that emotion. You can't just say, I feel this emotion, I'm going to stamp it down. That doesn't work. You have to process it and work through it and understand what is the root cause behind what's behind that emotion. What is your body truly telling you about the situation? Like, for example, if you go to do public speaking, there's some people who would say, you get that nervous feeling in your body. And one person will say, yeah, and I feel crushed when I get that. And another person will say, that tells me I'm ready to go because my body's waking up and getting ready for the moment. It's amping me up. And maybe I feel unfamiliar because I'm not so used to being so hyped up. So you can interpret it your own different way in different situations.
That's
But
interesting. You're kind of flipped compared to like the other ESTJs that interviewed, because like a lot of them have trouble more with the emotional processing and have better with the routines. But you seem to have more trouble with the routines than than the emotional process.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. But the problem is TE. TE is the problem because you get so involved in the work and trying to get the stuff there that everything else becomes secondary. So the main issue I see with the T and F is the prioritization of the FI. That is not being done correctly because I'm
Right.
like, okay, I will just become more efficient. I will be the most efficient I can be. And so you were trying to tackle too many things. And when you ask yourself, why am I doing this, this, and this? You say, oh, well, this is for so and so. So and so had a problem, so I'm reading this book so I can tell them how to fix their problem. So and so had this problem. And it's like, what about you? Like, what's your priority? And so that's the main thing is I'm not consciously realizing and prioritizing correctly. So I've got this big, powerful steam engine, which has got no driver. It's just going wherever. And that's the main problem I'm experiencing. When I was in my 20s and my younger years, I had a ton of emotional stuff. I was extremely sensitive. The most simple things would make me upset. Today, if something makes me upset and I feel very sensitive about it, there's usually some kind of weird expectation I have. Um, like, for example, I had one recently where if I start asking questions and then someone's like, oh, those are silly questions. Now, I understand also TE, you're asking stupid questions because you want to get the most basic logic sorted out correctly. But it's also like I was having this unconscious expectation that other people would play the same game I'm playing. And now with OP, you can tell everyone's playing different games. And so I would get upset when they didn't play that same game with me. And it's like, does everyone need to play the same game as me? Do I play the same game as everybody else? No. And so I'm like, okay, then I don't need to get upset by that. So my expectation shifted, and then you're not upset by it. But when I was a youngster, oh man, I'd get upset all the time. And things were a bit hard where I grew up and stuff. But I mean, many people have a hard time when they're younger, and managing yourself is not easy. And I'm still learning how to manage myself better. Um, but yeah, it is flipped. It seems like it's the routines, but honestly, I'm just not fussed about the routines because I know what the core problem is. And the core problem is I'm making myself too busy. I need to do less and do more effective work rather than try to do so much. And then everything else slots back into place.
From a prioritizing standpoint, I related to a lot of what you said, by the way, because I'm sleep last. So like so I guess that's why you're not sleep last. That's why you're sleep third, because you are doing all this stuff, which is great. But in terms of prioritization, if you weren't being dragged by the tribe to fulfill their own agenda, and you were to focus on your own agenda, what would that be? Like, what would your main priority in life be, essentially?
Trading, just trading, trading the markets. Yeah. But that being said, there's still a value to being driven by the tribe because there's still stuff that you should build for the tribe. Building stuff just for yourself is cute, but like it has no value. It needs to also serve others, and that's kind of what is fulfilling in life. And I know
Right.
I'm just speaking my savior function, but the saviors, while the story has lies in it, there's also truth, and so you do have to believe some of that truth. Um, very much giving is a big part of life, and that's what makes life fulfilling. But you also have to take time for yourself and give to yourself because you also exist and you're also a person. And when I was younger, that was a harder thing to accept that I am a person and that I deserve love and that, because I realized that I treat other people as if they deserve love. And the thing is, I'm losing your question. Say it again, please.
Oh, my question was, what would your, top priorities in life be if without the tribe's agenda, outside from the tribe's agenda? Like if you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, wife and kids and trading.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so cool. You got that clearly defined. I guess that's like a double masculine SF sleep there. It's like you're very like confident in what you want, when you actually get down to it.
Well, yeah, so as I got my type back, I was talking to some Soviet FEs and I was like, can you help me prioritize? Can you help me prioritize? And then I was like, so what are you doing with your time? And it's like, okay, I'm doing this, and this. It's like, okay, well, let's just throw half that away. That's not important for me. So very recently, I was like, okay, this is the most important stuff. I've always known that I wanted to do the trading thing, but and I am doing it, but it's more so that I also want to have I want to do all the stuff in Linux and I'll do all this other programming stuff and I want to write all this code and I want to do this and do this and do this. It's like, okay, but you're 34 now. Like, when are you gonna have a family? It's like, oh yeah. that's very important. I want to have that. And it's like if I don't focus on it, it's going to get pushed to the wayside.
Right. That makes sense. Oh, I'm like I'm like a bunch of older than you. Um, yeah, I don't have a I don't have any kids or anything yet. So like I'm like, huh, interesting. That's like from I guess everyone's priority is different, right? So
Yeah, well, that depends if that's your priority or not. Um, but it's mostly like that first function, man. Like it's hard. Like it's dragging you around.
right. Let's go back to the SF sleep stuff. I want to talk about emotions and values. Okay. Let's start with values first. What would your top 5 values be that you personally adhere to?
Fine.
Yeah, and I
Honesty and integrity.
okay.
Um, high quality. When you do things, you do them well, because I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything.
Okay.
And so if you do things sloppily, you will do everything sloppily, and it's not spilling over into the rest of your life. And what you practice grows stronger.
What you what?
What you practice grows stronger.
Okay, I see.
So yeah. So whatever you do, whether it's good or bad, it's going to grow stronger. So be careful with your actions today. So it'll be, yeah, what you practice grows stronger. How you do anything is how you do everything. Honesty and integrity. I don't really know any more than that, to be honest. Maybe I do, but it's not really. It's not loaded.
Oh, it's fine, man. Those are really good, by the way. It's kind of weird. Your values are interesting because 2 of them is like FI values, and then the other 2 feels more like NF values, like from like kind of like the INTJ, ESFP, ISFP, and like ENTJ. Like 'cause they have like that they have an NF code, and it feels like 2 of them are like NF codes. So I'm like, did you borrow those from those guys? Like the first 2, the one that you said really quickly, that felt like it was yours. The other 2 felt like it was borrowed, but then you took it as part of yourself. I don't know if that's true or not, but like that's what it felt like.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've read a lot of books. I've interpreted and thought through a lot of information and put things together. But I think I've heard this in podcasts. I've read it in a couple of places. Um, yeah, there'll be a few other things as well, but it's mostly just like as long as you are honest and have integrity, you're not going to do that much wrong. And yeah, your aim is true.
I feel like when you said like how you do one thing is how you do everything, I was like, ah shit, that's like my I don't I have the bad habit of like have you ever done your strength finder test? Your strength finder 2.0?
I've never heard of that.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a really good one by Gallup. I know like David Chan shits on it, but I think it's really good actually. And like they actually have a lot of scientific data to back it up, because like like OPS is great and I think it's the future, but at the same time, it's also not been uh validated by the scientific community yet. Well, this other system has been. So I think it has more weight to it at the moment. I think OPS will overtake them eventually at some point. But yeah, it's like so for me when I took the test, it says activator, and activator is like your process is gonna be sloppy as hell, but tell your boss or whoever you're working for, look at your result, not like the process. So like when you said what you said earlier about like how you do one thing is how you do everything, I'm like, I started thinking, I was like, can you be like a hybrid where like you want like high quality result, but your process to get there is sloppy as hell? Like, like it's like one of those things I was thinking about, because TE I feel like is kind of sloppy compared to TI, but at least TE you test it with reality at least, and then you had real time feedback. So in a way, it's more like realistic, you know.
Yeah, because you've proved it in some sense. It's been
Yeah,
proven.
you tried it. It's sloppy, but you have real result to prove that this is effective, you know, versus
Yeah,
TI.
I see. It's hard for me to say because you see, I come from a programming background, so I know that when I write code, you write code for developers primarily. So when you write your code, you want other people to be able to read it. So if I write something that's esoteric and complex, I'll say, well, I won't understand what this is in 6 months' time. And if someone else new comes to this, how will they understand it? And I have
Right.
to think from that perspective. And I'm obligated to think that way. And if I do it a different way, I feel uncomfortable. Like I go to bed at night, lying awake. I'm like, man, that code, like, how's someone else gonna understand it? And I have to like come back and like make it more understandable.
how do you work with code as a blast play person? Because that's so slow, and you're like a cranked up blast play, you know?
I mean, I'm double activated SI, right? So I'm
Right.
very, very OI, very OI. And I've got
Okay.
my box, and I've got a fairly big box, but what's in that box? I like that stuff. I likes what I know, and I knows what I like, and I likes what I know, kind of thing. But I'm not that bad. Maybe because I'm double observing.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I've been
Eventually.
coding since I was 16. Since I was 16, I love coding.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're OI, so it makes sense. Plus you're double observing. So yeah, that makes
I
perfect
just, I
sense.
just, I just hate it when I have to do research. Right now, I'm on a new project and I have to do research, and it's like, oh, so much reading.
The consumer.
Um, it depends. Yeah, it depends. Like if I'm into it, then I'm ready to go, and I can read for 10 hours straight. You know,
Yeah.
but if I'm not that interested, I'm like, oh, so difficult.
Okay, last part for the sleep before we jump into consume, okay? The last part for sleep that is, can you, I don't know if you've taken the time to what do you call this? I don't know if you're taking the time to investigate this, but what would you say would be your top 3 to 5 negative emotions that you've had the most struggle with in your life?
Anger.
Anger's number one. Okay, so anger's is a surface emotion, right? It's like an iceberg emotion. So underneath that anger,
Yeah.
what is it about anger that's pissing you off? Like what's causing it?
Yeah, so you're correct in that. Anger is usually an indication of something else. So when I was younger, I would always turn to anger because things were not fair, and so I'd get angry, and that would usually be the case. I get very upset. I get very upset if I see someone treating another person not well, like not correctly. That upsets me tremendously. But if you treat me that way, I tend to go inward, and then I'm like, okay, well, I must be strong enough to handle this. I must be strong. I must be strong, kind of thing. And I know that's not true because, in a sense, you are feeling that way for a reason. So you're angry because you're being mistreated here, and it can also be like, if you start becoming resentful at something, you get angry all the time. You got to introspect that and find out, why do I feel this way. Um, it's mostly anger. Um, but that's from a young age. I mean, I was always angry. I remember this Monty Python sketch where they say, you can go in and pay for an argument. I remember like when I was 25, I was like, man, I wish I could do this. I just want to argue with someone right now because I just need it. But I grew up in a house where we were fighting and arguing a lot. So that kind of pattern carried through. And around my 20s, I kind of mostly got through that. It resurfaces here and there, but I know how to cope with it and manage it. And then when I do feel it, then I'm like, okay, let me remove myself from the situation and think about it. Aside from anger, I mean, I'll feel sadness, but it's mostly sadness for other people and situations, um, and maybe frustration. I think out of all of these, I feel frustration the most. But that's because I'm trying to control things, and you have to do the stoicism thing. What's within your locus of control, what's not within your locus of control. So that's where the frustration stems from. But I have to let go. I just have to let go and let it be. Because in the end, everyone is the master of their own destiny, and they have to choose for themselves what they're going to do. And whether or not I have the information that could help them, the reticular activation system has been quite interesting because unless someone has actually had pain from a certain thing, it's not important to them. And therefore, you can give them the information and it will mean nothing to them. So it means nothing to blast at people. They have to first go through the pain and then go ask for help. And only when they come ask for help will it be there. And I'm sorry that I keep doing the EJ thing. I keep blasting it and I'm like reverting it to like other people.
Yeah. Well, at least you caught yourself.
Terrible. Yeah, I'm watching myself very closely. It's just funny. I still want to do it because it feels correct, but I do see myself doing it. But
Yeah.
largely it's frustration, and those are the reasons I feel frustration. I don't feel the anger so much anymore. I'm pretty placid. I don't really explode at people. If I do get angry, I'll take it in, cool it down, and then I'll go speak to the person only when I'm calm and rational. Because I accept, like as Robert Greene says, everyone has emotions, and we will all become irrational when you have emotions. When you're fearful, you will think the threat is bigger. When you're angry, you will imagine certain different things, and you will not be thinking clearly. And the relief you get from expressing those emotions in the moment is not worth the long-term consequences. It's just not.
All right, Jason. So I'm very impressed with your with your sleep processing and your being able to figure out your emotions so well. Like that's super impressive, especially for an EJ. That's like high. That's like double impressive. So, that's super cool. I think the double masculine sleep helps a big time for sure. Like knowing, like locking it.
Well, in my 20s, I watched a lot of movies and I dug really into emotions and I tried to get as deep into emotions as I could. So I've been through a bit of the emotional stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
You didn't
Thank
have
you
to
for
give
the
me
compliments.
you didn't have to give me reasons, by the way. So for your
I can't help myself.
yeah.
I need to learn how to TI and make my reasons personal. It's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Or just FI it, be like, yeah, I feel that way, you know, just like I feel, you know, like you don't have to,
Yes,
because TI is still reasons, right? Like you don't need reasons for your feelings, you know. But anyways,
that's true. Yeah, you want to move on.
yeah, I do. Let's go to your NF consume. Your NF consume last. So you clearly read, as you said, and I don't think you're lying. Especially because you're a double observer. So I think like, yeah, you need to consume some information for your work and stuff. Um, but let's talk about the other stuff that I think might be an even bigger problem for you, which is the NF part, like the NF part of NF consume. Um, so the NF part is meaning and purpose. So like what's the meaning of your life? Like what's um and like what generates that meaning? So because it's from a position of consume, it means new experience will you can derive meaning and purpose from new life experience, essentially, right? So um so that's the first part of the question, is like, have you noticed that when you did experience something new, whether you traveled somewhere new, um you know, like you're just in a new environment, or met someone new, or anything new in general, do you feel like there's like or like let's say you watch a movie, like does any of them evoke like an emotion of like inspiration, motivation, where you feel like, you know what, I have something to live for now, you know, and then like I this is very important to me, like this is what I live for, you know.
So I'll start with the moment you start asking the question, does my life have meaning? That's the ticket to sadness. The moment you start asking that question. But it's also important to ask the question and to think through it. Because if you dwell there, so what you focus on determines your reality. And so if you focus on how meaningless your life is, you'll get stuck there the whole time. However, I do find that when I read a book, when I'm learning a new set of topics now, often my stuff is usually around trading, psychology, and poker and programming. It's everything I read is usually around those realms, and the psychology one's very broad. I do get into also philosophy, but it's mostly Eastern philosophy and also Stoicism and a few other things. But I'm very loose with the information. And I find that as I make connections between things, I get really excited, and I'm like, yes, 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 this is really fun. And I go more, 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 and I want more, more, more. And so I'll just like keep reading, and I'll get really excited about something. So, you know, I also find that as you read a book, you read it with your current level of understanding, and then you read it a few years later, and you're like, oh, I understand this better now. Like I found that with The Art of War, is that the first time I read it, I was like, okay. And then you read it a few more times as the years go by, and your understanding gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And I love that process. That is so much fun. But for me, I find the most important thing is, can I get into the zone? If I get into the zone, that is where it's bliss. That is pure bliss. And so I very much follow Robert Greene's idea towards in his book Mastery, where the idea is when you get really good at a skill and you hone it and you learn all the different peripheral information around the skill and you attain mastery, that is the most meaningful thing you'll find in your life, is getting really good at one thing. Although I still keep chasing two rabbits, but I need to stop chasing two rabbits. But it's hard. But I've still tried to build skills in that arena, and that is very fulfilling. It's very nice knowing that I'm competent at this and I can do this and I can keep doing it, and it's fun.
Part of NF consume is putting your ladder in the right building. So one of the problems with people who don't, especially people who are like ESTJs, or people who have similar type, could be like sleep last, consume last, is not having the time to gather several life path or experiences, because you need to sample a bunch of different ones before you can find out which one resonates with you the best. And then once you find out what resonates with you the best, that's what you climb essentially, right? So you can't narrow down too quick, because if you narrow down too quick, you could be climbing the wrong ladder. You get to the top of that building, you look down, you're like, oh shit, I never wanted this life. What the hell did I do? I wasted my life, you know?
Yeah.
So
Rest in peace, ISTPs.
yeah, those guys, man, I swear, like they're so smart but also stupid at the same time. No offense, because like,
No,
but like, because like, yeah, you got to the top, but you lost all your friends. Like, what the hell? Like, are you really smart? You
yeah,
know?
no,
So,
precisely.
yeah,
I have asked myself that question many times. I've looked at different things and I figured, I am enjoying myself here. Maybe there is something else where I will enjoy myself more. And on the outside, people might say that, Jason, you're wasting your life. What are you doing? This
yeah,
is a waste of time. It's not worth it. But I find, you see, because I've gotten so into trading and poker, I've done a lot of the emotional work. There's still more to do. There's a lot that I didn't even see. As I got my top, I realized that I went and reread some books, and I was like, okay, I need to work this stuff out. So I started doing a lot of writing. But yeah, you do have to prioritize and figure out which window you're going to climb and where you're going to put your ladder, and that's it's very very important. And I'm on I believe in zero-based thinking. So that's something out of Brian Tracy's books, and the idea is where you are currently, you can stop, reevaluate, and make new decisions, and then branch off here, branch off there, and never get stuck on one thing. Always keep yourself open to the options. And it's like they were showing in that Deep Mind when they played Go. What's the formula for intelligence? Increase your options in each step. How do they play? And when you study chess deeply, you discover that if you don't really have a move that advances your strategy, what's the counterplay to reduce the opponent's options? And so increasing your options is an extremely amazing strategy, and you need to be able to do that. But increasing your options, certain things only become available to you when you go deep to a certain level. Only then will you be able to do more stuff. So technically, the two have an interplay, and that's probably just double observing.
your audio sounds kind of muffled. Did something happen?
Yeah, I think my earphones are not working anymore.
Oh, okay, gotcha. No worries, no worries, no worries. It's fine.
I'll move it closer.
Yeah, it's better. That's a lot better. Yeah, awesome. All right. Last question for NF Consume, and then we're gonna wrap up the interview soon. So I got two more questions for you, okay? And then we'll wrap it up. So the next part is external self-awareness. So that's part of NF, is part of Consume, is being able to see yourself from a third person perspective, like kind of like how the tribe
Can't do
sees
it.
you. Can you?
Can't do it.
You can't see
Can't do
yourself.
it.
You don't know how you come across
do
to
it.
other people.
No, I was playing netball the other day with my brother, and I tried to make a joke with the ref because I'm still new, and like someone jumped, and I'm like, this guy like jumped into me, and then the ref blows a whistle and gives them the advantage to throw the ball, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand the rules, so I'm just gonna go with it, but let me just make a joke here. It's like, but he jumped into me, ref, and then a bunch of people started laughing, and my brother's like, after the game, he's like, Jason, like we were worried the ref was gonna like kick you off here because you were so like argumentative, and I'm like, I was joking, like, and I'm not like, people will say something like, "Oh, but I was just joking," it wasn't like that. And I was like, man, I really can't see myself, can't do it. So I stay in robot land, and this is a problem: is that I don't do my demons, and so I'm staying in robot land because then you can't blame me because I know my intentions are pure and whatever. And although intentions are not the whole story, but it's still like, this is the ST of what occurred. And so you can't tell me that the NF was off, whatever, because I just did the ST.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly correct. It doesn't make me a whole person.
No.
But I've caught myself doing that, where I stay in robot land, because then I'm like, I'm safe now. It's safe. Because I can't see myself externally. And I hate being blamed.
There's only one thing you can do to practice that, right?
Yes.
Like no matter what you do, you have to record yourself. Like you need to have a video camera, and then you like let's say you're playing that that ball sport that you're playing. So you need to watch yourself in the camera, and then later on when you go, you need to watch yourself, and then you'll cringe because you're like, oh my fucking god, am I doing what the hell? What is wrong with this guy? Like you'll judge yourself, obviously, but then but like that's how you learn, because like that's how I learned, right? Like I watch like old videos of myself, and I'm like cringing, right? I'm like, oh fuck, like, oh, I'm like just like turning red, right? I'm like, oh my god, I'm so cringy. What the hell? Well, like, And then that's when I know like to correct that behavior moving forward, right? Because I know I'm doing that shit, right? I'm like, stop. You're in it. So like I record myself a lot and I watch it later on. And I'm like, am I still cringing myself? If I'm not, I'm like, okay, good. So
That's great. Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea.
yeah.
But to carry a video with that like that with me all the time, I would have to do what you're doing and watch myself interact with people.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like interviews are good actually, because then you can watch yourself. So if you start like a small YouTube channel doing interviews and stuff, you can just like not to grow your channel per se, but just to watch yourself, see how you interact with people,
Yes.
and then you're gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this shit, or if you travel, a good thing to do is like to vlog, to like have like a GoPro or like a cell
It is
phone,
a good idea.
and it's like talk in a camera and stuff, then you go home and watch it later. You're like, like if you don't cringe anymore, that means you're good. That means you're okay. But if you're still cringing, you got work to do. Like I have a lot of work to do. I still watch myself and like cringing. I'm like, still got some ways to go here. Anyways, so I guess the NF vibe is also something you have trouble with because you can't see it, right? So
100%. 100%.
I think for that one, you just need to get feedback from the tribe, and then you have to like listen to them, like with you consume last, right? So you need to listen like deeply, and you're like, okay, this person is saying to me that I am wrecking the vibe, like you are out of line,
Oh, so the way I do it is I realized maybe it's correct to say functions, but I'm doing it through SI. So I'm just saying I've recorded all these different things, so I know this is not right, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. And so I've recorded what the stuff is. And I mean, when I was younger, I watched a lot of movies and you try to get into that feeling. But if I send text messages, I got a friend who pays attention to the vibe and he's like, Jason, I don't know how to interpret this because the vibe is like, I'm not sure what the vibe is, so I can't establish the meaning. And I'm like, who cares what the vibe is? And obviously now I'm tight. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, of course you would say that.
Like,
Of course you would say that.
yeah.
Okay, dude. Like I think the best way to read the vibe is when you're talking to someone, you don't focus on what you're saying. You're watching them the whole time. So if they're like if they're like fidgeting a
Oh,
lot
yes.
or whatever,
Yeah, so I see that. My SR tells me that.
yeah,
I just see the body language.
Yeah, are they bored or like
Yeah.
if the way they're like replying to you is like yeah, and we're like, okay, I need to like hear this.
Oh yeah, no, that stuff immediately. I'm like this. I know it instantly, and it's masculine SR, so I'm confident on it and I know it.
And it's
I'm
better.
not,
It's better if you talk to
yeah.
like to women because like they'll give you a better feedback. So if they're like rolling their eyes,
Yeah.
they know you're cringe.
Oh yeah, I mean EJ, like I watch people very closely. I see all the body language.
Yeah.
I see all those movements. I know exactly what's going on. I know what you're thinking generally by watching you. So
yeah, but you have to take it personally. You have to take it personally. You have to be like, I'm the bad guy here, or I'm the cringy person here. That's what you have.
Yeah. No, look, that stuff I'm quite good at in person and like on video chat like this. But if I can't see your face, it's going to be a real problem. It's going to be a real problem. If it's over text, it's a problem. But if it's in person, there's not really any issues. Universally, like I always say, everyone likes my younger brother, and whenever I tell him that story and his wife that story, they always say, "But Jason, the same is true of you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool," but I'm not consuming it.
He's not absorbing it. Okay. All right. Last question, and then we'll wrap the interview. Okay. Last question is audio kinesthetic. Can you talk about learning from listening and also like moving with your body and your hands and stuff?
Okay, so you said something to someone else. I think you were talking to INFJ Daryl a while back. And you were saying, or you were talking to someone else, and you were saying that when you read, you're supposed to read the stuff and then think about it later. And the IJs, they tend to read, think about it immediately, and try to pull in the information. And I find for myself, as I go through information, I have to think about it immediately. Otherwise, nothing fits, nothing sticks, nothing stays. I just have to do it that way. I've tried doing it the other way.
No, that's not my question. Sorry, Jason. No, I'm talking about the sound.
Yes. So I'm getting there. So essentially, you're asking about learning through audio. So I generally do not try to learn through audiobooks because I will have to pause it and think through the stuff immediately, and that's too tedious. Whereas if I have a text-based book, I can read through it slowly, bit by bit, piece by piece, and then work it out in my head. And so I get to think through it slower that way. That's why I went with the initial piece. The audio stuff is like, I didn't expect that. I thought it was visual, because I'm generally like, I don't like the sensory world, in the sense of like, I know where everything in my house is. I should be able to know by closing my eyes, I can fetch it and find it. And so that's a tangent. Anyway, so I don't like audiobooks and I don't like podcasts. I prefer to read the stuff directly, to learning that direction. But yes, the audio, I can hear social anxiety on people's voices. I can hear when they're uncomfortable. I know when they have anxiety. I know all these different things. I can hear it with my ears. So that's what audio means to me. But in terms of learning, I prefer to read, or play through other people. But I hate playing through other people because nobody knows anything. I'd rather read. But yes, I can hear the distinctions and stuff like that.
And then kinesthetic? Like, are you good at picking up sports, or like learning how to move your body well? Like, let's say you're lifting weights and stuff. Like, are you pretty quick at that kind of stuff?
Yes, yeah. So for example, I always count the stairs when I go up the stairs, and I try to optimally walk up the stairs in a perfect way. And I should be able to, if I've walked up a set of stairs, I should be able to walk up it backwards. Maybe I could just look at it. I want to be able to walk up it backwards with my eyes closed, and I want to be able to do that stuff. And I feel like I'm failing if I can't do that. So I need to be able to memorize the physical world and then walk through it.
Gotcha. That sounds really dangerous, but okay. And anyways, so Jason, we'll wrap up the interview here. So thanks for coming out and sharing more about your life as an ESTJ of this specific type. And I find it very interesting that you having sleep third double masculine made a huge difference than having it last. It's like night and day difference from like the ESTJs I've interviewed with sleep last. So I thought that was really cool comparison to see your perspective and those guys' perspective as well. So yeah, take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you around the group.
Thank you, Kendrick. It was lovely chatting with you.
All right, see you.
See you. Bye.